This story begins long before you made Gielinor your home, long before anyone made Gielinor their home. Aeons ago it was a peaceful realm, untamed and lush. Nature spread its tendrils to every corner. It was perfection. But to some, perfection is something to strive for. To others, perfection is something to improve. And it was not long before something began to take notice. The being known as Guthix appeared down from on high, and so became the first thing to set foot on Gielinor. He looked around and took a breath. He knew perfection when he saw it, and he began to seed life into this fair realm. And so he attempted to improve perfection. Erecting an enormous world gate, Guthix brought forth the first men, the first dwarves, the first sheep, cattle, giants and gnomes. They soon spread out to every coast, to every mountain, and to every jungle, making themselves a new home. Then came Seren, from Tarthiad, invited by Guthix to share in the splendor of perfection, and with her came her children, the elves, immortal and beautiful. They settled in Tiranan and built the first city. Gielinor then knew no conflict, no misery, no destruction. The races lived in peace and harmony and began to pray, thanking their benevolent gods. Guthix, happy with his paradise, disappeared far beneath Gielinor to meet with endless slumber. Word of a perfect realm travelled fast, and it was not long before others began to cast covetous eyes towards Gielinor, and it was not much longer until they began to arrive. Guthix and Seren were not the only gods. No, there were others. Temekin and Elidinus were the first to arrive. It was love at first sight at the river in the desert, and through them came Ichlarin and Amasket. They claimed the desert for their own. Bandos arrived with his mighty army, eagerly awaiting the splitting of skulls and the spilling of blood. His mighty host claimed the southern hills. And then came Saradomin. Arriving on Intrana, he brought with him the Icene and the Centaurs. Armadil and his Aviantes were next, and they took the skies. And finally, him, the Empty Lord, the Light's brother, he who left his sister and their mother, the elder goddess Ma, to explore the universe. He who embodied everything Seren was not, Zaros, and he claimed Gielinor in totality. Like Guthix, Zaros travelled throughout the universe, and he brought with him his own allies, the demons and the vampires. They quickly carved Gielinor apart. Misthalin, Asgarnia, Farinthri, and northern Mauritania fell beneath his boot, and his empire soon became the largest the realm has ever seen. Ichlarin and Amasket led the Majorat, beings born from the elder goddess Ma, to Gielinor in an attempt to fight back the encroaching darkness from their desert home. With their new allies, they fought back the Zerosian Empire to a stalemate. But, without war, the Majorat grew restless, and soon looked to their kin, to the Empty Lord, for leadership. But not every Majorat was loyal. There was another. One more devious, more cunning, more chaotic than the others. A general of the Zerosian Empire, Zamorak was never happy, despite quickly rising through the ranks of the army. Thousands fell beneath his blade, and yet he wanted more. he needed more. And so he set in motion the unthinkable. All it took was a single weapon, an elder artifact capable of slaying gods, to fall into the wrong hands, and alongside his allies, the Majorates Haziel and Zamorak, the Vampire Dracan, and the human Vigora, Zamorak launched his coup. Zeros had not foreseen such treachery from within, and he and his bodyguards were quickly overwhelmed. Thrusting the staff into the back of Zeros, Zamorak looked at his former master, first with glee, then with fear. Zeros was still alive, and soon his hands were wrapped around the neck of his would-be assassin. The universe was fickle, and all it took was a little turn, a little pressure, and the staff slid further into Zeros, impaling him on the spot. With his hands still wrapped around the neck of Zamorak, Zeros began to weaken, and with a grin, Zamorak removed the hands from his neck. The power of a god flowed through that staff, empowering the general. Zeros ceased to exist on that day, and with the death of a god came the birth of another. Zamorak, the general of the Majorat, was no more. Zamorak, the Lord of Chaos, arrived. The other gods looked on in horror as one of their own died. The pretender would need to be banished, they thought, and so it was willed. But for whatever reason, the banishing did not work. Zamorak would appear back on Gielinor shortly after. His eyes aflame with vengeance, the power of a god flowed through him, and with the god-killer in his hand, soon the others would bend their knee in servitude, or bend their knees in death.